What's up, guys? What's up, guys? Welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of the Number India, Number RCB Cricket Podcast. I'm flying solo today. Um, there's a reason for that. After the last test, I actually went on vacation to the enemy territory, to England. We had a great time. We visited London, and I'm seriously jet lagged, so I wasn't able to wait for my partner. And so I wanted to give a third test review, fourth test preview podcast episode. That's why we're here today. And so let's get right into it. First of all, that was an incredible third test match. It had a little bit of everything. It had good batting, great bowling spells, a little bit of feistiness that you always want to see. That's always enjoyable to see between the two teams. It also had a riveting fifth day and a climactic ending, which unfortunately didn't go in our favor. For me personally, it was one of the tougher test defeats to recover from. Maybe the toughest test defeat to recover from in the last 5 to 10 years. I can only think of a handful of test matches that were more painful than that. 2008 Sydney Test is the last one that comes to mind with this type of devastation, really, in the latter parts of the fifth day when the result was decided. So, I think it's a big opportunity lost. We came so close, but it feels so far to get the desired result, and now we're fighting an uphill battle down in the series. Thought we um, had a pretty decent opportunity at multiple points in this test match. So let's break it down day by day. The first day we bowled well. We kept it tight. We kept the run rate down. They played a little bit of old-fashioned cricket, actually, which was surprising. We quieted Bazball, and Siraj was mocking them a little bit. Um, and I thought the first day honors were even. Second day comes, and Bumrah produces a magical spell. He helps bundle them out for a total that I thought was par for that large pitch. It did not seem as flat as the first two test matches. They had something in it for the bowlers. And when we got to our batting, we laid an incredible platform. Being 240 odd for four with the KL Rahul and Rishabh Pant partnership, we were cruising at that time. And I think that a lot of people will point to this as one of the big turning points of the match. And that was that run out at the crucial stage of the partnership between KL Rahul and Rishabh Pant when the score was at 240. Now, much has been made of this run. Rishabh Point dabs it to, short cover. I don't know whose call it was, but Shubman Gill in the post match said that it was Bunt's call. Bunt called him through. KL Rahul made his ground fine, but Ben Stokes, brilliant bit of fielding, throws it to the unexpected end where I thought Bunt was a little bit of lazy running. I think he was caught off guard. The throw came to his end, and that run out really changed things. We're looking at a 50 to 100 run first innings lead, and instead we fall to 248 for four at that point. KL Rahul gets his 100 after lunch, but then plays a really lazy shot right after that. Suddenly, both set batsmen are out, and we don't even manage a first innings lead at all. And then it becomes a one inning shootout. And that was really when the test match took off. So it was the end of the third day when we had been bowled out. And they came into bat, and we're trying to squeeze as many overs as we could. That was real cinema. Zach Crawley was clearly wasting time. He was clearly not looking to play as many balls as he could. He was trying to avoid the second over deep in the day. And our players, which I love to see in that moment, were letting him have it. Most notably, you all heard what Shubman Gill said. Basically, he said, grow some courage to Zach Crawley, except in much more strong language. So that really, I thought, fired us up as a team, and it really fired us up as fans too. It really felt like the true coronation of the Shubman Gill era. We were finally in it. We hadn't really seen much of this side of Shubman Gill. He has it in him, but this was the first time it came to the forefront as captain. And it was great to see. I loved it. Fast forward to the fourth day, we bowl brilliantly. Siraj gets a couple early. Bumrah gets a good spell in there, great spell later in the day, and we really ride the coattails of Washington Sundar, who picks up 4 wickets. This off spinner in England picking up 4 wickets in the third innings is you don't see that very often, and we are able to set a target of 193, which in the moment, I'm feeling great. I mean, the way the pitches have been, they've been flat the first test, flat the second test, not so flat for Lord's test or something in it for the bowlers, but still you almost saw 400 scored in both the first and the second innings. So I'm thinking we'll be able to chase 193 fairly straightforward. So we come out to bat, and here's another turning point that I want to highlight. Jayswal's shot, man, we love Jayswal. Everybody is behind him. I just hope he learns from this because that was really a unacceptable shot to play in those circumstances to open the door for England to come in. If you get off to a good start, 40, 50 for no loss in a small chase like that, it can really dent their morale. And I thought Jayswal played a very disappointing shot and opened the door for England, which they took in the end. Then late in day four, honestly, we were under the pump and they gave it back to us with interest, especially when Shubman Gill comes out there to bat. Uh, Look, Shubman Gill was awesome at the end of the third day. I love the energy, but he was equally shaky and I'm gonna say terrible in the batting in his fourth innings. He played at so many balls outside the off stump. He didn't look settled at all. Feet were not moving. He looked I hate to use this word, but he looked a little scared. I don't know if that was just him being unnerved by all the tension of the test match that had been created, or it was a big fourth innings chase and he's new to this kind of pressure as captain, or a little bit of all of the above. I don't know what it was, but that was a very uncharacteristic Shubman Gill innings when you compared that innings to all his other 5 innings. In the first innings of this test match, he got out for a cheap score, but he looked settled when he was at the crease, and he just got out to a good ball and a good catch by Jamie Smith up to the stumps. In the second innings, he did not look like he wanted to be out there. He did not look like he knew what to do out there, which was so shocking for a guy that's leading the series in run scoring. So when Bryden Cars gets Shubman Gill out, now their tails are really up. Then we send Akash Deep in as the night watchman, and this was also controversial where people were saying that KL Rahul should have taken more strike. I think that's wrong. I think Deep did his job. He faced as many balls as he could. He got the team to the end of the day and protected the batsman that was a top order batsman for the next day. I think that's the definition of a night watchman. That's always been the definition of a night watchman. Akash Deep did what Akash Deep is supposed to do, and that left us at 58 for 4, KL Rahul and Punt coming out in day five to try to settle our nerves in the chase. I think the first 10 minutes of day five, I was feeling good. Bunt got a good boundary off of Archer charging him. Um, Kale Rahul looked settled. He was looking good, getting behind every ball. But then Bunt gets out, and he was the guy that can put a lot of pressure back on England by scoring quick runs. And when Bunt got out, that's when I was like, this could go sideways fast, and it did. from 58 for four on the morning of day five. We collapsed to 82 for seven. And that leaves Juddu and NKR to try to put together a miracle partnership. They survived for about an hour. There's some criticism there that when they both got to double digits and the partnership was building, that one of them should have taken some chances and tried to up the scoring rate to put some pressure back on England. That didn't happen. Just before lunch, NKR gets a good delivery, and he walks back to the pavilion. Now we're really, really under the pump. Jadeja is stuck playing with number 10 and number 11, still needing 80 plus runs. And that is a very, very difficult task. And I wanted to shed some light on this partnership too. There was a lot of criticism all across the board for those last two wickets. The Jaddu and Bumrah partnership was growing at a snail's pace. Somehow they were getting the job done by just taking literally one single and over. Bumrah hit one boundary. That was his only scoring shot um, till later in the innings. He was out there for 54 balls, looked fairly comfortable. And the score gets all the way to 147 for eight, needing 50 odd runs, a little less than that. And Bumrah takes on Ben Stokes. Some people criticize Bumrah for the decision to play that shot. Some people criticize Jadeja for not taking more risks as the recognized batter to try to bring down the deficit. Look, first of all, it's not Boomer's job to beat Pujara out there and stick around for an hour or two on day five chasing 193. So I don't think you can be too harsh with your criticism on Bumrah for that shot that he played. The only criticism is why did he pick Ben Stokes to go after? He was bowling long spells. He was bowling really well. It's probably their best bowler this whole series. You could have picked someone else to go after. Okay, but you can't expect Bumrah to do a batsman's job. Then we get to Jadeja. I will defend Jadeja to the end on this. He had a plan. He was sticking to his strengths. His strengths is to survive, knock it around, and trust the tail to block. He is not a range hitter. You can look at his IPL batting. His strike rate has come down over the last couple years of his career. He was criticized for strike rate this year with CSK. He has a hard time finding boundaries at will. People were comparing Ben Stokes' Headingley innings and him batting with the tail in the past to how Jaddu batted with the tail this third test. I don't think it's a fair comparison. I think Ben Stokes is a better, more explosive hitter and run scorer than Jadeja. Jadeja buckled down and he played to what he thought were his strengths, and it was working. We got to 147 for eight from 112. They put on 35. I think that's a job well done to both Jadeja and Bumrah. After Bumrah got out, okay, you could argue that Jadeja should have taken a few more risks, but they got all the way down to the deficit under 25 by playing their very knockdown, drag out, block the first three balls of every over, take a single with Jadeja, have the tail ender just block off one or two balls. They stuck to the strategy. It was working. And now let's get to the very last ball of the test match. I personally think that's such a cruel, cruel, cruel ending for a guy, Mohammad Siraj, that all he does is try his heart out every time he plays. Even that ball that he played, he middled the ball. It was off the back foot. You can watch the replay. It literally hit the middle of his bat. He gets a terribly unlucky bounce that ricochets, trickles back and ricochets, and one single bail falls off. It was such a undeserving end for a otherwise hardworking, I feel like he does almost everything right player. For him to have that dismissal and that ending, it really, really hurt. And I just felt so bad for Siraj. I felt so bad for Jadeja, who was an absolute warrior out there. in the fourth innings. And, most of all, I was sad, I would say devastated and frustrated that it feels like we've outplayed them for most of these three tests, yet we're still in the hole 2-1 in the series. Um, I needed to get away and have some time to recover and reflect on what was a great test match, but in the end was very, very, very heartbreaking. And the word I keep coming back to is cruel. It was cruel. It ended that way. We got so close, but yet it felt so far in the end. And it was really after all of that back and forth, the sledging between both teams, the feistiness. If we had won that test, it would have been truly, truly memorable for India, for the series. So many things that we were unable to grab. So there you have the review of the third test. It's something that's going to stick with me for a long time, and I just hope we can bounce back in the fourth test. So let's get right to the fourth test. Between the third and the fourth test, we had a lot of news, especially in the last 3 days. NKR Nitish Kumar Reddy unfortunately is out for the series with an injury that he suffered during training. Akash Deep and Arshdeep Singh both are injured. They brought in Anshul Kamboj for cover for the fourth test. And because of the injuries to two separate fast bowlers, Jasprit Bumrah looks like he's in line to play the fourth test. That's at least one good bit of news. The other thing that we were monitoring between the third test and the fourth test was what was wrong with Rishabh Pant's finger. Looks like he had scans done. There was no fracture there. So he also looks ready to play the fourth test, which is also great news. Because of the injuries and also because of form with Karun Nair, it leaves a lot of selection dilemmas. So I'm going to put together the team I think is going to be out there, but it's been a whole series of musical chairs. I think it's been very hard to predict who they believe in, especially with injuries and Karun Nair's form. So I'll give it my best shot. Let's see how I do. Obviously, we're going to keep the openers the same, Jaiswal and KL Rahul. For Karun Nair, I'll be bringing in Dhruv Jurel. And the reason for that is twofold. One, he's a keeper, and I don't think you want Rishabh Pant keeping with that injury. Um, Two, I think that Karuna has been given enough chances at number three, three full tests. I know the first test was lower in the order, but last two tests were at number three, and although he's looked good and gotten starts, he hasn't converted any of the starts, and he hasn't even scored a half century in three tests. So I think it's fair to say on flat pitches, we should look elsewhere. And Dhruv Jurel is very technically sound, compact, and so I back him for a number three role and to help with the keeping. Now, a point on the keeping. We cannot allow double the amount of buys as they did. Again, we had 63 buys given up in the third test. They only had 30. A bulk of those buys came in the England third innings. And if you look at buys, that was like their top two or three scorer in their third innings. So Dhruv Jurel, please, 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 please limit the buys. It's easy for us to say, but some of those I think could have been stopped in the last test match. And you have a reputation of being a really good keeper behind the stumps. No more buys or as little buys as possible. That's a very underrated aspect of the third test, which we need to correct in the fourth test. So Dhruv Jurel at number three, Gill at four, Pant at five. In place of Nitish Kumar Reddy, I'm gonna actually move up and just pencil in Washington Sundar here because I don't think you can drop him after his amazing third test where he picked 4 wickets in the third innings. So we got Sundar, we got Jadeja, and at number eight, it gets a little dicey because you want bowling options, but you don't want to shrink the batting order. So here you're looking at Kuldeep Yadav or Shardul Thakur. I think that Manchester, out of all the English venues, has a reputation for helping fast bowlers a lot. I think after Trent Bridge in Nottingham, Manchester is supposed to help or has the reputation of helping fast bowlers the second most across all of England. But it also carries the reputation that it's a dry surface and days 4 and 5, spin can come into play. So Kuldeep Yadav should be given a consideration here, but I just can't see them taking three spinners. You already have Sundar, you already have Jadeja. So here I'll be penciling in Lord Thakur. Bumrah will bat at 9. I think that at number 10, in place of the injured Akashdeep, you're looking at Anshul Kamboj or Prasidh Krishna. By all reports, it looks like Anshul Kamboj is slated to make his test debut. So I'm going to put him here. I'm going to believe the tea leaves on that. He does look like a proper test bowler based on what little I've seen of him in the IPL. But a side note here, that reflects really poorly on Prasidh Krishna if there's injuries to two other fast bowlers and he can't make it back into the team. So I will say Anshul Kamboj will get the nod. And I hope Prasidh Krishna can kind of go back to the drawing board because I still believe in him as a fast bowler. But he hasn't shown it this series, and I think if Anshul is actually preferred over him, it will be a big dent to his confidence. So I wish him well in Prasid, but for the four tests, I don't think he'll be playing a role. And then Siraj at 11. So there you have it. Honestly, it looks a lot weaker than the first three test 11s. After number 5, you're already into all-rounders at 6, 7, 8. But with Jardu's form and Sundar's form, and Thakur being handy with the bat at 8, I think this 11 provides the best balance in the batting while also not skipping out on the bowling options. It kind of goes in line with the Gautam Gambhir style of 11 that we've seen this series. Let's move on to England's team. I think that there's only going to be one change. Shoaib Bashir, with his finger injury, has been ruled out, and Liam Dawson, the spinner, has been brought in as his replacement. So I think he fits into the 11. I'll be honest, I haven't seen much of Liam Dawson. Um, I do question here. Jacob Bethel is a part-time spinner, and just like we talked about before, with Manchester being very, very pace friendly, if they kind of just say, screw it, let's not take a frontline spinner, let's just take Jacob Bethel and we'll bowl part-time spin if the pitch is aiding spin with Joe Root and Jacob Bethel and strengthen our batting lineup even more. Honestly, that for me, that would be terrifying if you played, say, Jacob Bethel at uh number 7 and move Jamie Smith down one. That would be an insane batting lineup with Chris Wokes coming in at 9, and Kars, who's looking handy, coming in at 10, and Jofra, who can always hit a few, coming in at number 11. So I just wonder if they would even think about Jacob Bethel. I don't think so, based on what I've read. So Liam Dawson looks primed to play, but it was just a fun thought. I hope they don't play Jacob Bethel ever because I think he's the next English superstar. They're trying to ease him in. Okay, I get it. Ease him in for the rest of the series. Let's see him in the Ashes and wherever else. I don't want to deal with him. So the 11 otherwise is the same, and we've beat this 11 to death. So let's move on. So the stats I pulled as part of the four test preview are for a reason. I pulled these stats because I was curious. It felt like, still feels like, we've literally outplayed them the whole series, yet we're down 2-1. So I want to look at the deeper um, statistical analysis in terms of wickets and runs. So if you look at wickets first, we have the top 3 wicket takers: Siraj, Bumrah, Akashdeep. Siraj has 13, Bumrah has 12, only in 2 matches. Akashdeep has 11, only in 2 matches. Their bowling averages, Siraj and Akashdeep similar, 32 and 28. Bumrah, the megastar that he is, insane average of 21. Then you look at number 4 and 5. Stokes has 11 wickets, Tongue has 11 wickets, and their average is close to 30. If you look at the runs scored in this series, again, we have four of the top five. Gill, Bunt, KL Rahul, and Jadeja, 1, 2, 4, and 5, respectively. Only Jamie Smith on their side is number three in run scoring in the series with 415 runs. We have all four batters that are averaging above 60 in this series. And yet, despite having the top three wicket takers and four of the five top run getters in this series, we're still losing the series. How is that possible? Well, it's the old adage, catches win matches. I think this is one of the major reasons why we have been down in the series. We've only taken 28 out of 46 catches for 61%, while England, have taken 36 out of 46 catches for 78%. That's a huge, huge difference. It really made a big difference in the first test match, really made a difference in the third test match as well. If you expand fielding to buys also, we not only did we drop catches in the third test match, we also had way double more buys than they did. So I think fielding as a whole has not been up to speed. And I think that fielding is actually the main reason why we're down in the series 2-1. Beyond that, I think we just haven't been up to par in the very big moments, the very big sessions, fifth day of the third test being the best example, or even the third session of the fourth day of the third test match being an example. We haven't taken our opportunities in the big moments. We haven't taken our catches. We haven't kept well. So despite this, we're still down 2-1 in the series. Quickly, I'll just touch on the Shubman Gill watch, which didn't go well in the third test. Both innings, he had cheap scores, so he's up to 607 runs this series. By the way, he's still averaging 101. So he's still the leading run scorer in the entire series. So, he's probably due for one bad test, but really hope that he bounces back in the fourth and fifth test because we really need him. 774 for the most runs scored in an in a test series by an Indian is well within reach. 974, feels a long way away unless he can somehow put together another double century. But the Shubman Gill watch continues, and let's hope he gets as close to Bradman as possible because that means that it'll be as good for our chances as possible as India goes. Last but not least, let's get into this embarrassing graphic for me, where I am now 0 for 3 in the single test predictions. I will say that my series prediction still looking good at 2-2. Which brings me to what I think is going to happen in the fourth test. I'm not confident at all about this prediction either way, but I can't shake this weird feeling, maybe hard overhead, but I just have this weird feeling that we are going to win the fourth test. Here are the reasons why. One, I think this long 9-day break served us well. I think it was a very, very, very hurtful loss in the third test, and we needed some time to get over it, get past it, start fresh. Also, I think that our batters are in very good form still, and our bowlers, our top bowlers, Bumrah and Siraj, are bowling extremely well. Bumrah is playing this fourth test match. I didn't think he would based on the original plan. We'll see what happens with the fifth test, but this is already his third test of the series with one left to play. I didn't expect that he would play the fourth test, but him being involved is a big deal for us, obviously. I don't care what the stats say that when Bumrah plays, we actually lose more than we win. I'm not going to get into those stats. That's a bogus stat. Bumrah has been rested in easy home series where we've piled up wins. He's played in a lot of the overseas tests, which are much harder to win. Hence, the winning percentage with Bumrah looks bad, and the winning percentage without Bumrah looks good. But I think it's totally bogus and false narrative. So Bumrah being back is obviously always helps any team's chances of winning. So him being back, long layover, and lastly, I think from the first test to the second test, this team showed an ability to bounce back. I give Gautam Gambhir a lot of grief. I'm not impressed at all by his red ball coaching since he took over. But this particular series, I think India has shown a lot of spine. Even though we're down in the series, these have been extremely close fought tests. All three tests have gone to the fifth day, um, the last session. I think every single test has gone to the last session of the fifth day. So we're right there. And I think we, can learn on the fly from the first and the third test about being ruthless and taking the opportunities when they present themselves. Like that stupid run out between KL Rahul and Rishabh Pant in the third test. No, don't take that run. Be ruthless with that. Milk that partnership as far as it goes. Take a first innings lead. We talked about taking catches. We talked about the buys. Those types of things I feel like you see from an inexperienced team. And these three tests have felt like we've gained a lot of experience. It honestly feels like six tests worth of experience because they've been so intense and long drawn out that I think that we're ready to bounce back in this test. So I will say that we're going to win the fourth test. And then even the series, setting up an absolutely mouth-watering fifth test clash at the Oval. We'll get there, but I really, really somehow feel good about this test, despite the rash of injuries, despite the devastating loss in the last test. I think we'll bounce back. I got faith. I don't want my soul crushed again. Let's do this. Let's get this win. And we'll talk to you guys right after the four tests. Take care. Jai Hind.